This is the Lighting Fires podcast, supported by Henley Business School. Welcome back to the Lighting Fires podcast. I'm excited that we're here with season 3, and today I am walking by the Oxford Canal. Actually, you might be able to hear the birds in the background. Spring is definitely here. And in this episode, I meet Steve Jones, arguably the best sound engineer in the world, or at least that was his ambition when we first met, and I suspect he may have fulfilled that by now. So Steve and I talk about when the worst possible thing in the world happens to you, how you move on. We also talk about becoming a manager, being good enough as a manager. We discuss executive presence and imposter syndrome. So I hope you enjoy this episode. If you do, please share it with others who might like it. And if you're interested in working with me on any of these topics, do get in touch, julie@lightingfires.co.uk, or contact me on LinkedIn. I hope you enjoy. So welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, so I'm Steve Jones. I am a failed drummer, is how I usually introduce myself. And now for 25 years, I've been working in live sound, mainly for a manufacturer who make loudspeakers that get used at most of the big concerts and shows out there. And my role is to help people design those sound systems, to use them, and to train people on them.
Thank you. And these are not just any venues or festivals, are they? So do you want to name drop a few of them?
I'm really privileged. Every day is a day where you get to just look at what you're doing and go, wow, I get to be involved here. So I designed the system that's in the Royal Albert Hall, Wembley Stadium. I've worked with artists like Bjork, supporting people on the Coldplay tour, the Beyonce tour, all of these kind of big acts and names. I'm really privileged. We are, let's say, the creme de la creme of concerts and events, and it's a great place to be.
Yeah, thank you. So, Steve, I wonder if you might tell us a little bit more of your kind of backstory, your background.
Okay, so I need to go way back. The life-defining childhood, let's say, I remember at about the age 7, my parents split up. Me, my older brother, who's 7 years older, and my older sister, who was 9 years older, went to live with my mum. But about 2 years after that, my mum got cancer, and she died when I was 10. And my older brother and my older sister then brought me up from the age of 10. So we had to learn just very quickly that we had to get on with our lives, let's say. Life wasn't going to provide anything for us, and we had to make the most of what we had, which wasn't that much, because at the time, I was 10. My sister was in her first year at London School of Economics. My brother was earning £60 a week on the YTS scheme with Yorkshire Water.
Wow.
My sister had to move back home at the time, and we had to make it work. And we had lots of amazing friends that really helped. I can look back and see a lot of opportunity where I got to define life in a way for myself that I don't think a lot of other kids got to. So that whole upbringing, the whole thing of what I went through as a child, without doubt, it shaped who I am. The terrible scenario shaped me in a positive way. So I've always had a kind of can-do mentality, I think, as a result, that if there's one phrase my wife has heard me say so many times, it's, it'll be right, in my Yorkshire accent. What's the worst that can happen? Well, the worst did happen. Yeah. So what's left? What's left is just to get on and try.
Yeah.
So that was a big part of shaping me growing up, and just being able to give things a go, because if I don't, how do I move anything forward?
Yeah.
The alternative is to not try something. The alternative is to let life overrule you.
Yeah.
There is no other choice but to try and get on and give something a go.
Yes. No, I do agree with you. And I read a quote from Mark Twain the other day, which said, in 20 years' time, you'll be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than the things you did do. And I shared that with my husband, and we had really different points of view on it. He saw it as quite a kind of negative piece. But for me, I actually thought that's really inspiring. Like, think about all the things that you're scared of and just get on with them. Just doing what is the worst that can happen, really.
Yeah. Have no regrets.
Right then. So Let's cast our minds back to when we started our work together. So this was 2019.
Yep, 2019. The company I'm at, D&B, Audiotechnik, I started here in 2007. I'd done, at that point, 12 years or so of being the techie guy that did his thing. I'd become a team leader. I'd kind of had a team grow around me, and I'd just moved into a new role. Instead of being responsible for the UK, I was now responsible for Europe, Middle East and Africa in the new role. And I was trying to figure out what the heck I was meant to be doing in that role. And I think that's where we got introduced.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. And what were you hoping to get out of the coaching? What were the topics or issues that you most wanted to work on?
It's a very interesting question. I actually don't know. I remember at the time we had some of our first sessions. I remember thinking, what is this all about? And I'd gone through a really tough time as a manager with quite a big conflict within the team I was responsible for that directly kind of impacted myself. And I'd lost a lot of confidence in who I was and what I brought to the table and what I was meant to be doing in some ways. And I thought, okay, somebody's going to tell me a lot of answers about what I should be doing. And I realised now I got that wrong.
But I think that's very true. Most people come to coaching expecting to be given answers, but that's not what it's all about. It's about facilitating your thinking and giving you time and space and prompting you to maybe think about things a little bit differently and find the right answer for you.
Yeah, I mean, where I'd got to there was, in my stage of my career at D&B at the time, was very similar to all the managers that came before me. We were all techie geeks. We were all sound engineers or musicians or whatever that loved working for this company. From when I first joined, the turnover of the company since 2007 has pretty much gone up by a factor of 10 nearly. So the company's grown. The number of staff has gone through the roof. And an amount of us became managers by accident, not because it was a career path we intended, but because we were somehow surviving through amazing growth, trying to keep things together in a world where we didn't know where we were going and what we were meant to be doing. And we became managers. And my managers of me were quite often in the same boat. They didn't intend to be a manager.
Yeah.
So as I was trying to learn what is being a manager of people, I was looking to those people above me who were managers of people who were probably still asking the same questions themselves because none of us intended it.
No.
I was going through a scenario where I was questioning more than ever, am I good enough to be a manager? Is this what I should be doing? And as a company, we were terrible on we still are in many ways, on helping people understand what is it to be a leader, a manager. So that's where you came in.
Yes. So I remember that you talked about wanting to look at the conflict, about managing people. You also said that you're inherently a doer. And so there was trying to get this balance between still loving the doing, but knowing that you had to be thinking about strategy and your people. And you had a real mix of characters in your team. You also admitted to me that you can be very blunt sometimes as the Yorkshireman.
Yeah, a spade is a spade in my world. Like that's the Yorkshireman inside me. I think, going back to my childhood, this was, how do I cope with the world around me? Well, I need to say what's in front of me as I see it. We ended up in a scenario where there was a big conflict, let's say, through a load of things. There was a 10-year history of a few people in a similar team where we had different ways of working, different ways of processing, different ways of learning and moving things forwards, and 10 years of unspoken conflict. And then the pandemic happened, and then furlough happened, and me as the manager of a team where I was the only one not on furlough, everybody else was on furlough, all the psychology of what that meant for people's sense of security and identity and everything, it just brought everything to the table in one go in a way that wasn't a good, stable environment for everybody at that moment. And it was tough to go through. I wasn't equipped personally, I don't think, to deal with that at the time. But this is where Phil, at the time as my manager, there was a lot of stuff we had to go through, kind of grievance processes, all new to me, all under the pressure of the pandemic. And I was constantly reaching out for people. I remember Phil saying to me at one point, look, this is like a rite of passage kind of thing. As a manager, you just need to go through this and it will make you stronger one day. I didn't have a clue what he was talking about. But at the same time, there was something there that I thought, okay, there's some positive out of this. I need to grasp hold of that and keep hold of it. And some point in the future it'll work. And I think that's where he then introduced us. And yeah, you were instrumental in that ability for me to have a mirror put up and for me to look in a mirror first and foremost before I look at everybody else that I had the conflict with in many ways.
If you're listening to this and you're interested in training as a coach, I can highly recommend the Professional Certificate in Executive Coaching or even the Masters at Henley Business School. It is the best investment I have made in myself and my business. The course is led by research, so you know it has academic rigour, and the tools and techniques you learn are highly practical. You get the opportunities to practice, you build confidence. I also gained friendships for life, a community that's continued to support me. I can highly recommend it. So if you decide to take the plunge and contact Henley about the certificate programme, do mention the Lighting Fires podcast. So I remember we did Myers-Briggs, didn't we?
Yep.
And I remember your score being particularly high on extroversion, which I think links back to what you said about just saying what's in front of you, saying what you see, because you do a lot of external processing of your thinking, don't you?
Yeah, I'm definitely, I have an ego, definitely. I'm a performer, played in bands. I love being on a stage and in front. I'm not afraid to open my mouth and to be wrong. And I'm a techie, I'm a problem solver, and I like, let's call it systems. So Myers-Briggs spoke to me because it allowed me to look at my own systems, my own tech sheet, my specification of who I am. It's just a really interesting way to potentially kind of look at yourself. And yeah, it became a really key thing at the time of me finding a method to look in a mirror and just be interested with who's looking back.
Yeah. And Myers-Briggs is just one useful lens, isn't it? There's lots of different tools and techniques that we can use for the similar objective. But I think it really does help us to understand other personality types and how to communicate more effectively with them.
Yeah, I mean, the conflict I was going through, I look back now and could I have done anything different at the time? I'm not sure. I don't know if there was any wrongdoing on either side, let's say. If there was any wrongdoing, it was the fact that we didn't find a way with different members of the team to just express to each other, not what are you doing that's wrong, but more, this is who I am, this is how I operate. And I think post the whole Myers-Briggs experience and the ability to look at myself and to talk about myself with the descriptors, let's say, of Myers-Briggs. I'm an extrovert, I work on intuition, I'm a thinker, and I perceive the world around me. I'm really at ease with that, and I understand how I work there. It also allowed me to kind of celebrate the things or explain to myself the things that why I do a good job in certain areas. But the thing I think I've got that helps me is I can move between intuition and sensing. So I can go from a detailed problem solving mode into zoom back and see a bigger picture of the world and see bigger patterns at play that allows me probably to interact on one hand with my techie, geeky problem solving colleagues, but then also to talk with my more commercial and sales colleagues in a way that they can connect with. And it's been a key part of my whole career that I look back now and can explain it and therefore look forward and kind of celebrate it and know how to use it.
I really like the way you've just described that, because I do think that just recognizing your personality type allows you to kind of inhabit it a bit more comfortably and more confidently and own it and recognize your strengths. I think that's powerful.
Yeah, and the conflict area, the colleague that I had the biggest difference with happened to be the colleague that had the issue with, let's say, for many years, where we just couldn't find a way to connect, to communicate. And so I spent a lot of time just thinking, okay, in the Myers-Briggs world, what would his 4 letters be? And then to look into, okay, what does that mean, that person, the way they work? And what I quickly found out was actually my wife is the exact same.
Oh, wow.
So on one hand, the person that I struggled with for the longest to have a good working relationship with was the same personality type as the person I give the most trust to and the most of me too in many ways. So it allowed me to actually go home and chat to my wife about, okay, when I do this thing, how does that make you feel? And it really helped me piece together why things ended up where they did in this work scenario. And the construct of Myers-Briggs, it's just a useful tool that gives you words and descriptors and kind of a system to try and explain the world around you. And fundamentally, for me, learning quite quickly, it's not trying to explain first and foremost what the other person is. It's first going, right, who am I and how do I work? Because I can't affect how somebody else changes their world. I can only affect the way that I work, and I can only do that effectively if I understand who I am. And I would say, what am I now? I'm 44. Probably the last 10 years, I'm learning more and more who I am.
Isn't that
and
interesting?
That's not stopping.
Yeah. And when you're younger, you imagine that by the time you go into your 40s and 50s, you totally know who you are. But I mean, I've just turned 50 and it's still evolving for me. Are you a business leader looking to grow performance or a coach looking for a system your clients will value? If so, Insights Discovery might be for you. If you're a regular listener to the Lighting Fires podcast, you'll know how powerful it can be to understand how people think and make decisions. Insights Discovery is one of the world's most trusted psychometric systems. It's used by 48% of Fortune 500 companies and consistently scores above 97% in accuracy based on user feedback. Insights works because it's practical. It helps people and teams make better decisions and communicate without friction. Experience what's possible when you go from managing people to truly understanding them at www.insights.com.
The world I inhabit is a fast-moving world where I have a lot of demands from a lot of people in the world who are very good at what they do and very demanding. And in a company where our growth is so fast, it's hard to stay on top of things. So I don't get spare time to think about anything. And actually what the coaching did was force me to periodically have a moment of time where we walked into a room and I thought you had the agenda. And I realized, no, her agenda is to find out what my agenda is. And it was just really useful to stop and think. And the fact that we walked into a room and I didn't know what we were meant to be doing was really useful because it allowed me just to offload actually what is in my head. What is it that I'm struggling with that I don't have the time to write down on paper? So, a little example would be, I remember you got me to write a description about what my team is and what my version of my team doing its thing is and what makes us special. I'd never done that before because generally I'm just coping with each day. But by stopping and writing that piece of paper made me realize, I do have a plan. I've never written it down, but I do have the plan in my head. And as much as I might feel it's at times chaotic or not structured enough for the future, actually, no, I am working towards a plan. I've just never been able to write it down before because I've never took the time to write it down. And I needed somebody to stop me and ask me some questions and write down what was in my head.
Yeah. And I remember after, I think, our first session, I was really aware that you had been offered this coaching and you hadn't chosen it. You hadn't chosen me. And I did feel like you just totally got into it. And we had a great time together.
I mean, for me, I'm naturally inquisitive. My wife hates how inquisitive I am because I ask questions on everything and she doesn't want me to ask questions on everything. So yeah, the first sessions I came in, I didn't know what it was. I looked at it as training. And it took me a few weeks to start understanding it. It took me a few weeks to realize I'm not going to walk out of this room with an answer for the problems that I'm going to face that day. But there's tools there and things we learned and things we discussed that I've took a long time to think about and to get comfortable with. And more than anything, it was talking through things that I knew were in the deep depths of my mind, but I needed to bring them out and talk about them because I needed a confidence boost at the time to realize I do know what I'm doing. I think another big one I remember is you handed me a piece of paper that was a printout from something about purposeful drift.
Oh, purposive drift. Yeah.
And I remember feeling like I was a bit of a failure because I can't tell you what my strategy is for the future. My way of kind of working on gut and intuition, there is a plan deep down. I just find it hard to explain it because I work in a complex area, and that's not a failure. And actually, I can be at ease with the way that I work because it's delivering results. But I felt like I was in a world full of managers who wrote PowerPoints with 10-year plans, and I couldn't write one.
Yeah.
But yet my team were delivering the results I needed to, and we were doing a good job. So there's all these bits where the coaching allowed me over a period of time to look in the mirror, to get comfortable with who I was, with how I operate, and then learn that I can be confident in what I'm doing.
I really love the purposive drift idea because for people who don't want to write the PowerPoint and the long-term strategies, essentially it gives you a sense that you have a general sense of purpose. You know deep down where you're heading, but you're going to drift more kind of naturally towards that, which then takes a lot of pressure off feeling like, oh, I'm not good enough because I'm not putting these slides together or whatever it is.
Well, I think that idea helped me get comfortable with and when I reflected looking backwards over my career, the things that had made me successful, it was all through small wins. It was all through just winning the small ideas and maintaining consistency on the smaller things we do and kind of safeguarding that and not letting the big new curveballs deter you from the smaller little wins, if you like.
Yeah.
And I could be comfortable with that.
Yeah. So I'm just bringing out a piece of paper here because we did a session where you flip charted your thoughts on executive presence. And I think exec presence, it's a bit of a kind of mysterious topic for a lot of people. And I think actually you've just really explained it really well. It's about having confidence in who you are and just being really consistent with those small wins and kind of achieving things over time.
Yeah, and I'd say before we went through this coaching process, am I doing anything different now to what I was doing before? Not necessarily, but I can explain a lot more now of who I am and why I do what I do, and to not be fearful looking forwards. And so I can walk in a room and talk about all of the things and not feel out of place and not feel like I'm a fraud. Yeah. I think probably the topic of building up my confidence was probably also trying to get rid of an imposter syndrome, which I think we all still have. And I'd probably say it's good to have that level of imposter syndrome, so you kind of humble. But definitely exec presence, I've still tried to figure out what it means myself, but I think a lot of it is just confidence and the words and the ability to explain who you are and why you're doing what you're doing.
I definitely saw you transform as a leader over the time that I've known you. I've definitely noticed that change. So is there anything more that happened in the coaching that you wanted to share?
I mean, there was so much in the coaching. It helped me in so many ways. I feel like there's always in a large organization that's growing, there's a need to always feel like you're pushing your career and you're heading up to the top. I had a colleague at the time that talked a lot about C-suite. And I remember thinking, oh, should I be bothered about getting on a C-suite? And it seems like everybody around me wants to be the top. I remember we had a conversation about what is it that makes C-suite people be good C-suite people. And you just, without any hesitation, just said self-awareness. I thought that's really interesting, because I feel like this whole journey has been about me having self-awareness and being able to be confident in who I am. And so my growth on self-awareness now has helped me be more comfortable with who I am, but it's also changed the way I lead my own team now. I'm much more transparent, probably vulnerable. I say vulnerable with a pinch of salt because my way of working has always been I say what's in my head, but I'm now not fearful to share with the team what am I struggling with, but within a context of being able to explain who I am and why I'm struggling with it. And I do as much as I can now with my team about helping them to look at themselves and understand who they are. A little example would be last year when we all got together, I just bought them all the Surrounded by Idiots book. Because I think it's a really simple way for people to step into that thing of going, oh, am I red? Am I blue? Am I yellow? Am I green? And to just stop and think about self-awareness. So I definitely, through our coaching, have learnt the confidence of being self-aware and how it allows me to talk about myself more comfortably, and how now that's allowing me to help my team to try and develop the same mentality. And I'm constantly saying to them as well that they should do the same to their peers, and to try and set a culture of just being confident in who we are.
Yeah. Right, so at this point, Steve, before we finish, I'm going to ask you to pick a question out of the red envelope.
Okay. Is that one or two?
I think that's one.
Yeah. Do you want me to read this out loud?
Go for it.
Biggest F up. That's a really tough one. My natural thing goes to think about the projects I lost. There was a project in an amazing venue in London. It's a beautiful venue that I wanted to get the sound system in. And I was adamant I was right and the client was wrong. But I forced my opinion in such a way, and I forgot to just sit back and go, they've made their mind up. And do you know what? It's their money. And there's nothing I can do here. And we lost the project in some ways because I was too pig-headed and I thought I was right. And I should have just let them live their dreams with their money, and we'd have won the project. And would it have been a failure? No, it would have worked. Yeah. And yeah, that was one I look back a lot and think, yeah, little enthusiastic Steve at the time just needed to sit back a little bit and let the customer feel like they were right. Yeah. So that was definitely one there. I think if I think about more kind of the leading and the manager side, my biggest mistakes, I just need to learn to be quiet more. Put a question out there and shut up and let my team talk. And I didn't do that early on because I was probably fearful of the silence, and I didn't know how to contain my own thoughts. And I can see multiple times where I also would collude with other extroverts. We would have sessions where we would dig deep into something, and I would love it. And we would go so deep on finding the truth in a topic. But for the introvert in the room, they were absolutely petrified of what they saw in front of them, and I had no idea. I didn't have the awareness, and I needed to have better awareness in that. I genuinely think the coaching we did, I would definitely without a doubt say it has been the number one help in me feeling confident in who I am and what my version of being a leader is to those around me. So thank you. It's been really good.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So listening back to this episode, one of the books that Steve mentioned, I think is a really useful way into personality type in a quite kind of straightforward, simply structured way. So that is the book Surrounded by Idiots. Steve always raves about it, so why not give it a try? I'd also talk about this idea that, you know, for him, he realised that he had to give things a go, and that has just been his attitude to life, you know, just giving things a go. What's the worst thing that can happen? And I do genuinely believe that these are the foundation stones of building our own confidence. And I also think he talks a lot about, you know, being a good enough manager. And if you're not lucky enough to be able to attend management training, I'd really encourage you to spend some time just thinking about who are the best managers that you've ever had in your life. It could be in work, it might have been when you're studying, it might be in a voluntary role. Think about who's been brilliant at that and who's been not so brilliant, and what you've really loved about their management style, and see what you can learn about others and how they do things, and start applying that to your own management approach. So good luck with that, and we'll bring you another episode soon. If you'd like to find out how we could work together, you can visit my website, www.lightingfires.co.uk, email me at julie@lightingfires.co.uk, or contact me on LinkedIn. Julie Williams, MSc. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with somebody else who might enjoy it, and keep lighting fires.